In today's video, we will discuss the imprisonment of our favorite queen, Queen Elizabeth I. Not many people know that her older half-sister Mary had her imprisoned in the Tower of London. We will discuss why, and we will discuss the living conditions of the heir apparent while at the Tower of London. Mary was 17 years older than Elizabeth, yet they had so much in common. They were both illegitimized by their father, the king. They both had lost their mothers by the end of their brother Edward's reign, and both had a religious agenda, albeit different religions. Mary, however, seemed to have more of a spiteful taste towards Elizabeth. Mary was old enough to remember Elizabeth taking everything that used to be hers. Elizabeth became the heir, Elizabeth was legitimate, and Elizabeth was Protestant. Mary would never let this go, but her younger brother Edward's birth allowed her to grow cordial towards Elizabeth due to neither being able to have greater claim than Edward. Once Edward became ill, Mary decided to include her sister Elizabeth in establishing her new reign. Edward didn't want his sisters to rule after his death, so he attempted to change the succession before he died, thus named Lady Jane Grey, their cousin, the Queen. Jane was so young and obviously not the mastermind behind the coup. Her father wanted to basically rule through Jane. Jane didn't want it, but had no choice. The people didn't want her, and the Tudors weren't going to go down without a fight. After Mary successfully marched on London, she entered with her sister Elizabeth, showing unity, regality, and strength. This relationship was cordial at best because Mary knew Elizabeth was her heir, and many people still wanted to keep Protestantism. Mary's reign began on Sunday, the 1st of October, 1553. Almost 20 years the senior of Elizabeth, Mary finally had her chance to rule England. She had been betrothed to many men before this point, the first being when she was only 2 years old. She had her eye on King Philip II of Spain, one, because he is half Spanish, and two, she enjoyed the idea of a strong Catholic nation as an ally. Yet many opposed the union. Catholicism meant a lot to Mary. She felt as though bringing England back to Catholicism would save the nation. The churches got their land back, the priests got their relics and wealth back, and the religious intolerance turned on the Protestants. Mary is the inspiration behind the nickname and ghost tale Bloody Mary. This will be due to the religious intolerance she had. She didn't kill an unusual amount compared to her family, though. Her throne was not yet secured. Mary was on high defense, even more reason to marry Philip. Mighty Spain would help secure Mary's realm and end the idea of Protestantism. Many in the realm hated the idea of a foreigner coming and making England its satellite state. For this reason, a man named Sir Thomas Wyatt, a landowner in Kent, marched on London to end Mary's reign, prevent the marriage to Philip II of Spain, and put Elizabeth on the throne in the name of Protestantism. This was unsuccessful, and after torture, the men admitted their plans and were executed for high treason. The main concern was, how much did Elizabeth know? With Elizabeth being steadfast in her faith, she was a great concern and threat to Mary's reign. The nation was greatly divided between Catholic and Protestant. Whether Elizabeth wanted to or not, they would put her at the head of that rebellion. An inquiry was made into the matter of how evolved Elizabeth was. While the inquiry was made, Elizabeth was summoned to London to speak with the Queen. Elizabeth replied that she was ill and too ill to travel, so the Queen sent royal doctors to go check on the constitution of the heir, and they determined that she was well enough to travel. I personally feel as though they would have deemed her well enough to travel regardless of Elizabeth's condition. When she arrived in London, she realized that she was headed to the Tower of London. The Tower of London is significant to Elizabeth for many reasons, primarily because this is where her mother was held before she was executed. Elizabeth absolutely refused to enter the tower, then was forced in by the guards. In a sick fashion, she was celled in the same chamber as her mother was. However, as scary as the tower sounds, not all the cells are disgusting. There were luxury apartments that had a very comfortable quality to them that came with servants. These type of rooms were dedicated to the wealthy or royal prisoners. Her stay was brief, and she was allowed on house arrest a few weeks later. To this day, no one knows exactly how innocent Elizabeth was, but she did escape with her head, unlike her mother. Mary did marry Philip. She was crazy about him. He was kind of repulsed by her. Mary then had her notorious phantom pregnancy, and her husband shortly after left to go back to his own realm. Mary was left insecure, abandoned, unfulfilled, sickly, and unaccomplished. She grew no closer to Rome due to her husband's wars in Italy. Her heir was still a devout Protestant, and Mary felt as though she had failed God. Paranoid to the end, Mary kept her sister distant and isolated to stop any future rebellions. And she still had no new love for her heretic of a sister. She did try to persuade her sister to keep the nation Catholic, but Elizabeth did not bend. I'm sure Mary tried to intimidate her as well. The movie Elizabeth from the 90s did a fantastic job of portraying Mary and Elizabeth's final conversation. Many forget that Mary Tudor was the first Queen of England in her own right. Many also don't give enough credit to her devotion to Catholicism. Another admirable thing was her courage. She was never safe nor secure, yet she reigned till her death. She passed in 1558, and her devout Protestant sister Elizabeth ascended, overshadowing her sister's reign, and then overshadowing her tomb in death. The story of Bloody Mary then turns over to the story of Gloriana. Elizabeth had just as many people against her as her sister did, but she was able to keep her wits. Mary's council wanted to implicate Elizabeth so bad, they wanted the Protestant heir gone. Elizabeth was still a Protestant woman against the many Catholic men ruling Europe. A great portion of people in her nation were still Catholic, and Elizabeth would have to do what her sister couldn't, and that's sentence a royal figurehead to death. I'm curious to know if Mary would have had Mary Queen of Scots executed if she had lived long enough. I'm guessing not, due to their same religious beliefs. Watching Game of Thrones really opened my eyes to the paranoia of monarchy back then. I'm sure Mary personally didn't want to put Elizabeth in jail, but a message needed to be sent, and questioning needed to happen. Elizabeth would have had more reason than not to be part of Wyatt's rebellion, and for this reason, we still don't know how innocent she was in the rebellion. So many times in English history have siblings fought for power, let alone in Europe. I understand why Elizabeth needed to be jailed, but I think keeping her in her mother's old cell was petty, and releasing her on her mother's execution anniversary was even more petty. I greatly appreciate you all for listening. Last time I posted a video, I was at 50 subscribers. And now, a few weeks later, not even 2 weeks later, I'm almost at 100. I greatly appreciate all of you for subscribing, leaving nice and educated comments, and for taking your time to listen. I do notice that my videos on Elizabeth do very well. I wonder if y'all like Elizabeth, if y'all like queens, if y'all like the time period. Just please let me know in the comments what it is that you like about those videos. I'll link my video on Queen Elizabeth's final days and her video on her explosive death in the comments. And yes, our icon exploded in her casket. Thank you all again, and take care.
Come here. Closer, so I might see your face. When I look at you, I see nothing of the king. Only that whore, your mother. My father never did anything so well as to cut off her head. My husband is gone. They have poisoned my child. They say it is a tumor.
Madam, you are not well.
They say this cancer will make you queen, but they are wrong. You will promise me something? When I am gone, you will do everything in your power to uphold the Catholic faith.
When I am queen, I promise to act as my conscience dictates.
Do not think to be queen at all.